Okay, so picture this. A war that doesn't just last your lifetime, but outlives your kids and even your grandkids. A conflict where the only prize, the only thing you're fighting for is just survival. Well, that was the brutal reality for 7 kingdoms in ancient China. And today, we're going to talk about the story of how one of them, against all odds, finally won. So that's really the core question we're looking at here. How do you win a war that lasts for 250 years? I mean, think about it. How do you manage to outlast, outthink, and outfight generations of your rivals when the stakes are quite literally everything? All right, to get how this all kicked off, we've got to rewind to the moment everything just broke. See, for centuries, the old Zhou Dynasty was like the glue holding all these different kingdoms together. But then it crumbled. And in its place, a massive power vacuum. And you know what happens then? 7 rival states immediately rushed in to try and fill that void, and in doing so, they lit a fire that would basically burn for centuries. And that brings us to the Warring States period. We're talking 475 all the way to 221 BCE. That's 2.5 centuries where it wasn't just war, it was total war, and I mean that. We're talking fields soaked in blood, entire cities burned to the ground, whole populations just wiped out. It was this unbelievably brutal existential fight for survival between kingdoms that not too long ago had actually considered each other allies. So yeah, this new era, it had a whole new brutal logic. All those old rules about, chivalry and honor on the battlefield, forget about them. Gone. They were replaced by one single terrifying law: survive or be conquered. That's it. There was no middle ground, no third option. So who were the main players in this deadly centuries-long Game of Thrones? Well, after a whole bunch of smaller states got gobbled up, the conflict finally boiled down to 7 major contenders. These were the last states standing in this absolutely brutal tournament for total control. Okay, let's meet the contenders. Out in the west, you had Qin, the ruthless reformers. Down south was Chu, the sprawling giant of a kingdom. On the coast, you had Qi, the rich traders. Up north, Yan, the rugged frontier guardians. And then, kind of squeezed in the middle, you had Han, the buffer state, Zhou, who were masters of cavalry warfare, and Wei, the old powerhouse that was trying desperately to hang on. Each one had its own personality, and every single one was fighting for its life. Which brings us to the next really big question, right? In a world like that, a world of total war, where literally every single one of your neighbors is a mortal enemy, what on earth does it take to not just survive, but to actually win the whole thing? Well, the answer wasn't as simple as having a better general or even a bigger army. Nope. It was about a complete, radical reinvention of what a state even was. See, the old ways of doing things, the aristocratic, gentlemanly way of governing and fighting, that was now a guaranteed death sentence. To survive, and especially to conquer, you needed a brand new playbook, one built from the ground up on pure, ruthless efficiency. And just look at the difference here. The change was night and day. Warfare went from these, almost polite, ritualized clashes between nobles and chariots to something absolutely terrifying: total war, fought by massive armies of peasants. The goal wasn't just to win a battle anymore. The goal was the complete and utter annihilation of the enemy state. We're talking their armies, their people, their entire existence wiped off the map. So this new reality, it demanded a complete overhaul of society. It was like a survival checklist. Step 1, you had to create a super efficient bureaucracy that could tax everyone and everything to keep a permanent war machine funded. Step 2, mobilize your entire population. Turn your farmers into soldiers, not by the thousands, but by the hundreds of thousands. And step 3, innovate, innovate, innovate. Whichever state could mass-produce better iron weapons and master the deadly armor-piercing crossbow, they were going to have a serious advantage. Now, the philosophy driving all this change was something called legalism. And it was cold and calculating. The basic idea was that people are fundamentally selfish, so the only way to keep order is with super strict laws and really harsh punishments. Things like morality, tradition, totally irrelevant. It's all summed up in this one saying: the state is a weapon. The people are its edge. The entire point of society, from the farmer in the field to the highest official, was to make the state a better, sharper weapon for war. Okay, so all 7 states, they all tried to adapt to this new game. They all tried to play by these new, brutal rules. But one of them didn't just adapt. They became this new reality. They embraced the ruthlessness more completely, more totally than anyone else. It's time to talk about the ultimate winner, the state of Qin. So why Qin? What was their secret sauce? Well, first off, they went all in on those legalist reforms we talked about. They built a true meritocracy. Your background didn't matter. Advancement was based purely on results, and I mean that literally. You could be a farmer one day and an officer the next, but only if you brought back enough enemy heads from the battlefield. On top of that, they had a great geographic position, a strategic and defensible heartland. And maybe most important of all, they were absolutely obsessed with agriculture. They understood a core truth of total war. More food means more soldiers. To them, a bag of grain was just as powerful a weapon as a sharp spear. And once that incredible Qin war machine had been perfected over generations, wow, the end came with terrifying speed. It was like watching dominoes fall. In just 9 years, Qin unleashed an unstoppable blitz. 230 BCE, Han is gone. 2 years later, Zhao falls. 225, Wei is conquered. 223, the massive state of Chu is brought to its knees. The very next year, Yan. And then, finally, in 221 BCE, the last rival, Qi, just gives up without even putting up a fight. Think about that. A war that raged for 250 years was over in less than 10. The year is 221 BCE. It is the end of an entire era. And out of all that fire, all that blood of centuries of fighting, a single, unified China is born. Forged by the power of one state and ruled by one man, Qin Shi Huang, the very first emperor. But what did it all mean? What was the legacy of all this bloodshed? Why does this brutal, ancient period still matter so much? Because what was forged in that fire? Well, it would go on to shape the next 2,000 years of history. You know, the legacy of this whole thing is just immense, and you can still see it today. The very idea of a single, unified China, what they called all under heaven, it was born right here. That model of a centralized bureaucratic state, that became the blueprint for every single Chinese dynasty that came after. The first emperor standardized everything. He standardized writing, so officials across his massive new empire could actually talk to each other. He standardized money and even how wide the roads should be. The very first foundations of the Great Wall were laid then to protect this new empire. And of course, there's the absolutely mind-blowing terracotta army, an entire legion of soldiers built just to guard him in the afterlife. And that really leaves us with the great central paradox of this whole story, doesn't it? 2.5 centuries of just unimaginable destruction and warfare somehow created the very foundations for 2,000 years of civilization. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. The Warring States period ended with unity, yes, but it was a unity that was achieved through absolute, total, centralized power. So what does that 2,000-year-old lesson, the lesson that order can come from chaos, but often at a terrifying price, what does that mean for us, for our world, today?